I should have said no when Mrs. Chen asked me to watch her mother's place for the week. The old woman had broken her hip and needed to stay at the hospital, but someone had to feed the cats and water the plants. "Easy money," Mrs. Chen said. "Just sleep there, make sure everything's okay, and I'd get $200 for 7 nights. What she didn't tell me was that her mother, Lily, would be coming home every single night at exactly 12:47 a.m. The first night, I thought I was dreaming. I dozed off on the couch watching late-night TV when I heard the front door creak open. Footsteps shuffled across the hardwood floor in the living room. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, expecting to see Mrs. Chen or maybe a family member checking on things. Instead, I saw Lily. She stood in the doorway, wearing the same floral nightgown she'd had on when the ambulance took her away 3 days ago. Her gray hair hung loose around her shoulders, and she moved with that careful, measured walk of someone whose bones hurt, but her hip looked fine. "Oh, hello, dear," she said, smiling at me like nothing was wrong. "I didn't know anyone was staying over. How nice." I blinked hard, certain I was still asleep. "Mrs. Lily, aren't you supposed to be in the hospital?" She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Hospital? Oh no, I'm much better now. Don't mind me, I just need to check on a few things." She shuffled toward the kitchen, her slippers making soft scraping sounds against the floor. I followed her, my bare feet cold against the wood. "Should I call your daughter? She's been so worried about you." "No need to bother Susan at this hour," Lily said, opening the refrigerator. The light illuminated her face, and for a moment her skin looked almost transparent. "She works so hard. Let her sleep." She pulled out a container of something dark and thick, like molasses or blood. The smell hit me immediately, metallic and sweet, like pennies mixed with honey. My stomach turned, but I couldn't look away as she opened the container and drank directly from it. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and smiled at me again. "Much better," she said. "I'll be going back now. Sweet dreams, dear." She walked past me toward the front door, and I heard it open and close with a soft click. I stood in the kitchen for 10 minutes staring at the refrigerator before convincing myself it had all been a dream. Stress from college finals, maybe. Too much caffeine. But when I opened the fridge, the container was gone. The second night I stayed awake on purpose. I positioned myself in the living room with a clear view of both the front door and the kitchen. At 12:30, I started getting nervous. At 12:45, I heard the key turning in the lock. Lily entered exactly as she had the night before, wearing the same nightgown, moving with the same careful steps. She nodded at me pleasantly, as if we'd established some kind of routine. "Good evening, dear. Still up late, I see." "Mrs. Lily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Your daughter thinks you're in the hospital. She's been visiting you every day." Lily paused halfway to the kitchen and turned to look at me. Her eyes caught the light from the TV, and for just a second, they seemed to glow like amber. Susan sees what she needs to see. Some things are better left unexplained. This time, she retrieved 2 containers from the refrigerator. One was the same dark liquid from before. The other looked like raw meat, but it moved slightly, as if it were still alive. She consumed both with obvious pleasure, making soft, humming sounds. "Are you hungry, dear?" she asked, noticing me watching. "I have plenty." "No, thank you," I managed. She nodded and cleaned up after herself, putting the empty containers in the dishwasher. "I'll see you tomorrow night then. Try to get some rest. You look tired." After she left, I called Mrs. Chen. It went straight to voicemail. I tried texting but got no response. When I tried calling the hospital, they told me visiting hours were over and they couldn't give out patient information. I spent the rest of the night researching everything I could find about the Chen family online. Lily had lived in this house for 43 years. Her husband died in 1987. She had 3 children, Susan, Michael, and David. But when I looked deeper, I found something strange. David Chen had died in a car accident in 2019. Michael had moved to Australia in 2015 and hadn't returned since. According to his social media, he'd cut contact with his family completely. Posts from mutual friends suggested there had been some kind of falling out, something bad enough that he'd changed his phone number and blocked everyone. The third night, I hid in the coat closet near the front door. I wanted to see where Lily came from, how she was getting there despite supposedly being bedridden in the hospital. The closet smelled like mothballs and old perfume, and the space was cramped, but I had a clear view through the slats. At 12:47, I heard footsteps on the front porch, but they weren't coming from the street or the driveway. They were coming from above, as if someone had walked across the roof and climbed down. The key turned in the lock, and Lily entered as usual. But this time I noticed something I'd missed before. Her feet weren't quite touching the ground. She hovered maybe an inch above the floor, moving forward in a smooth glide that never disturbed the small rug by the door. She went through her usual routine in the kitchen, but tonight she brought out 3 containers. The third one was clear, filled with what looked like eyes floating in some kind of preservative. She ate them one by one, popping them into her mouth like grapes. When she finished, she didn't head for the door immediately. Instead, she walked to the family photos on the mantel. She picked up a picture of Michael, the son who'd moved to Australia, and pressed it against her chest. "My poor boy," she whispered. "If only you'd understood. If only you'd stayed." She set the photo down and picked up another one. David, the son who'd died. She kissed the glass gently. "At least you're with me now," she said. "At least you came home." That's when I noticed the shadow moving behind her. It was vague at first, like smoke or steam, but as I watched, it took on a more solid form. A young man, tall and thin like David had been in the photos, but his face was wrong, twisted as if he'd died in terrible pain. The shadow David reached out and touched Lily's shoulder. She leaned into the touch like a mother comforting a child, except the child was dead and the mother was something else entirely. "Tomorrow night," she said to the shadow, "we'll try again with Michael. The connection is getting stronger." The shadow nodded and faded back into the darkness. Lily headed for the door, but stopped just before leaving. "You can come out now, dear," she said without turning around. "I know you're in there." I held my breath, pressing myself further back into the coats. "I'm not angry," she continued. "Curiosity is natural, but you should know that some secrets are kept for good reasons. Some hungers are too dangerous to explain." She left, and I stayed in the closet for another hour, too terrified to move. The 4th night, I tried to leave. I packed my things and headed for the door at 11 p.m., planning to spend the night somewhere else and deal with the consequences later. But when I turned the handle, the door wouldn't open. The lock clicked and turned, but the door remained sealed shut, as if it had been welded to the frame. I tried every window in the house. None of them would budge. Even the basement door leading to the backyard was somehow locked from the outside. I was trapped, and 12:47 was getting closer. This time, when Lily arrived, she looked different. Her skin had a greenish tint, and her hair was damp, as if she'd been underwater. She dripped as she walked, leaving small puddles on the floor that evaporated almost immediately. Trying to leave wasn't very polite, she said as she passed me on her way to the kitchen. I've been looking forward to our conversations. What are you? I asked. She opened the refrigerator and pulled out something new. A jar filled with what looked like human teeth. I'm a mother, she said simply. I'm someone who lost her children and found a way to keep them close. David is dead. Death is just another room in the same house, Lily said, unscrewing the jar. Some doors are harder to open than others, but with enough hunger, enough need, you can always find a way through. She began eating the teeth, crunching them between her molars like nuts. The sound made my skin crawl. I've been feeding for months now, she continued between bites, building strength. Every night, I come home and nourish myself. Every day, I lie in that hospital bed, weak and broken, playing the part of a helpless old woman. Susan visits and holds my hand and tells me everything will be okay. She has no idea what I'm becoming. What about Michael, your other son? Lily's face darkened. Michael ran away, said I was sick, said there was something wrong with me. He couldn't understand that love requires sacrifice, that keeping a family together sometimes means doing things that others wouldn't approve of. The shadow of David appeared again, more solid than before. This time I could see his face clearly. His eyes were gone, replaced by dark holes that seemed to pull light into them. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. He wants his brother to come home, Lily said, watching the shadow. They were so close when they were little. David misses him. Michael left for a reason, I said. Maybe he knew something was wrong. Lily finished the teeth and closed the jar. Wrong? I brought my son back from the dead. I found a way to keep him with me forever. What mother wouldn't do the same? She moved closer to me, and I could smell decay on her breath, like flowers left too long in stagnant water. You remind me of Michael, she said. Similar age, similar build, the same stubborn streak. David likes you. He's been asking if you might stay permanently. The shadow reached toward me with fingers that weren't quite solid, but weren't quite air either. Where they touched my arm, my skin went numb. I can't replace your son, I said. Not replace, Lily corrected. Add to. I lost 2 boys, but I only got 1 back. The math doesn't work. But if I had 3, she smiled, and her teeth were stained dark with whatever she'd been consuming. 3 would be a proper family again. I pulled away from the shadow's touch and back toward the living room. Let me go. I won't tell anyone what I've seen. You can't leave, Lily said sadly. The house won't let you. Knows what I need and it helps me get it. It's been in our family for 4 generations. It understands about keeping loved ones close. She headed for the door as usual, but this time the shadow of David lingered. It followed me as I retreated upstairs, staying just at the edge of my vision. When I locked myself in the guest bedroom, I could feel it pressing against the door, testing the barrier. The 5th night, I didn't even try to hide. I sat in the living room and waited. When Lily arrived, she seemed pleased to see me. You're learning, she said. Acceptance is the first step. How long have you been doing this? Since David died, she said, settling into her favorite chair across from me. The grief was unbearable. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept feeling him around the house. like he was trying to come home but couldn't find the way. She didn't go to the kitchen right away this time. Instead, she talked, and I listened, too frightened to interrupt. The first time I fed, it was an accident. I was so weak from not eating that I collapsed in the kitchen, cut myself on a broken plate. When I licked the wound clean, I felt stronger, more connected. That night, David appeared for the first time. The shadow materialized beside her chair, more solid than ever. It looked almost human now, except for the missing eyes and the way its form occasionally flickered like a broken television signal. Each feeding made him clearer, Lily continued. Each night he became more real, but it wasn't enough. He was lonely. He kept asking about Michael, kept wondering why his brother never visited his grave. So you tried to contact Michael? I tried calling, but he'd changed his number. I wrote letters, but they came back undelivered. Susan said he'd made it clear he wanted nothing to do with us, but I knew better. I knew he was just scared. He'd always been sensitive to unusual things. Lily stood and walked to the kitchen. This time she brought out something I hadn't seen before, a small vial filled with red liquid that seemed to move on its own. "This is special," she said, holding it up to the light. "I've been saving it. It's from someone who shared Michael's gift, someone who could see between worlds." She drank it in one swallow, and immediately her appearance began to change. Her skin grew paler, her hair darker, her features shifted subtly, becoming younger, more like the woman in the old family photos. "Tonight, I'm strong enough," she said. "Tonight, I can reach across the distance and bring Michael home." The shadow of David grew more excited, moving around the room in quick, jerky motions. Other shadows began to appear, vague shapes that might have been people, or might have been something else entirely. "The house has been collecting them," Lily explained, noticing my stare. "Everyone who's ever lived here, everyone who's ever died here. They're all still here, waiting. But they need anchor points. They need family to keep them grounded." She sat down again and closed her eyes. The temperature in the room dropped noticeably, and I could see my breath in small puffs. The shadows grew darker and more numerous, pressing in from all sides. "Michael," Lily called softly. "Michael, can you hear me? It's time to come home." The air in the room began to vibrate, like standing too close to a large speaker. I felt pressure in my ears and tasted copper on my tongue. The shadows were moving faster now, circling us like vultures. "He's fighting," Lily said, strange showing in her voice. "He's trying to resist, but distance doesn't matter anymore. I'm too strong now." A new shadow appeared, different from the others. This one looked confused, lost. It kept reaching out as if trying to grab something, but its hands passed through everything they touched. "Michael." David's shadow reached toward the new arrival, but Michael's shadow recoiled. "He remembers," Lily said sadly. "He remembers why he left. But memories fade. Given time, he'll understand that family is all that matters." The new shadow, Michael, turned toward me. Even without eyes, I could feel it looking at me, pleading. It pointed toward the door, then back at itself, then at me again. "He's trying to warn you," Lily said. "He thinks I'm going to hurt you. But I would never hurt family." "I'm not your family." "You will be," she said with certainty. "After tonight, after Michael settles in, we'll have room for one more. David has grown quite fond of you. He says you have a kind soul." David's shadow moved closer to me. And this time when it touched my arm, I felt something more than numbness. I felt cold spreading through my body, starting from the point of contact and moving toward my heart. "It doesn't hurt," Lily said reassuringly. "The transformation is actually quite peaceful. You just get tired and then you sleep, and then you wake up here. Forever." I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't respond. The cold was spreading faster now, and I could feel my pulse slowing down. "Don't fight it, dear," Lily said. "Fighting only makes it take longer." But as the cold reached my chest, something unexpected happened. The shadow of Michael suddenly rushed forward, positioning itself between me and David. The two shadows collided, and the room filled with a sound like breaking glass. Both shadows flickered and faded, and the cold retreated from my body. I could move again. "No!" Lily screamed, jumping to her feet. "Michael, you don't understand. We can all be together." But Michael's shadow was already fading, pulling back across whatever distance Lily had dragged it from. As it disappeared, it turned toward me one last time and mouthed a single word: "Run." The sixth night, I was ready. I'd spent the day preparing, gathering everything I could find that might help. Salt from the kitchen, iron nails from the tool shed, matches, candles. I didn't know if any of it would work, but I had to try something. I also found something else while searching the house. A hidden compartment in Lily's bedroom dresser, behind a drawer that hadn't been opened in years. Inside were dozens of photographs, all of the same type, Polaroids of people sleeping, but these weren't normal sleep photos. The people in the pictures looked dead, their skin gray and their eyes sunken. At the bottom of the stack was a photo of Michael, dated 3 weeks ago. He was lying in what looked like a hospital bed, but his eyes were open and staring. Written on the back in Lily's handwriting: "First attempt, partial success." When Lily arrived that night, she looked terrible. Her transformation from the night before had reversed, leaving her more withered than ever. Her skin was almost translucent, and she moved with obvious pain. "You've been busy," she said, noticing the salt circle I'd drawn around my chair. "That won't help you, dear. This house is older than such protections." "Michael got away," I said. "Temporarily," she agreed, settling into her chair with a wince. "But he's weakened now. The connection has been made. Each night it will be easier to pull him back." "What about the photos? How many people have you done this to?" Lily looked genuinely confused. "Photos? What photos?" I showed her the stack from her dresser. Her face went pale as she flipped through them. "I didn't take these," she said slowly. "These aren't... I don't remember." She stopped at Michael's photo, staring at it for a long time. "This is recent," she whispered, "but I haven't seen Michael in years." That's when I understood. "It's not you, is it? Not entirely." Lily looked up at me with something like relief in her eyes. "I remember being in the hospital," she said quietly. "I remember the pain from my hip, the nurses, Susan visiting every day. But I also remember being here, feeding, calling to my boys. How can I remember both?" The shadows were gathering again, but this time they felt different, hostile. They pressed against the salt circle, testing its strength. "Something is using you," I said. "Something in this house." "The house," Lily repeated. 4 generations. That's what I said, isn't it? But my family has only lived here for 20 years. The shadows were growing agitated, swirling faster around us. The temperature was dropping rapidly. "How did you know to make that circle?" Lily asked. How did you know where to find those photos? I didn't have an answer. The knowledge had just been there when I needed it, like someone had whispered instructions in my ear. Someone's been helping you, she realized. Someone who knows this house. Someone who's been trapped here. A new shadow appeared, different from the others. This one was clearer, more human-looking. It gestured toward the basement door. "Who are you?" I asked. The shadow pointed to itself, then held up 4 fingers. Then it pointed down toward the basement. "The 4th generation," Lily whispered. "The previous owner. They're still here." The hostile shadows surged forward, finally breaking through the salt circle. But the helpful shadow moved to intercept them, and suddenly the room was full of competing spirits, all fighting for control. In the chaos, I heard Lily scream. Not the supernatural thing that had been wearing her appearance, but the real Lily, confused, frightened, and in pain. "I want to go home," she cried. "I want to go back to the hospital. I want to see Susan." The 7th night, everything changed. I'd managed to get a message to Mrs. Chen through a neighbor, explaining that something was wrong with the house. She'd called the hospital and confirmed that her mother was still there, still bedridden, still asking about her cats. Mrs. Chen arrived just before midnight with 2 police officers and a priest. I'd never been so happy to see anyone in my life. But when 12:47 came, Lily still appeared. She walked through the front door as if the lock meant nothing, nodded politely to the officers, and began her routine. "Good evening, everyone," she said pleasantly. I wasn't expecting company. The officers tried to speak to her, but she acted as if she couldn't hear them. The priest began reciting prayers, but Lily just smiled and continued toward the kitchen. "That's not my mother," Mrs. Chen whispered. "She looks like her, but something's wrong with her eyes." I noticed it too. Lily's eyes were completely black now, like pools of oil. "This is what's been happening every night," I told them. "She comes home, she feeds on something from the refrigerator, and then she leaves." But tonight was different. When Lily opened the refrigerator, it was empty. All the containers were gone. She stood there for a moment, staring at the empty shelves. Then she turned to look at us, and her pleasant expression fell away entirely. "Where is my food?" she asked, her voice deeper than before. "Where are my children?" The shadows began pouring out of the walls, more than I'd ever seen. They filled the room like smoke, and the temperature plummeted. "You've interfered," the thing wearing Lily's face said. "You've broken the cycle." "What cycle?" the priest demanded. "Feed the mother, strengthen the connection, bring the children home," it replied. "4 generations of this house have fed me. 4 generations of families have joined me. You will not be the exception." That's when Mrs. Chen stepped forward. "You're not taking my mother. Give her back." The thing laughed. "Your mother is safe in her hospital bed, dreaming pleasant dreams while I borrow her form. But dreams can become nightmares so easily." One of the officers tried to arrest the Lily thing, but his handcuffs passed right through her wrists. The priest's prayers grew louder, but seemed to have no effect. "Iron," I said, remembering the nails I'd collected. "Try iron." The helpful shadow from the night before appeared again, pointing urgently toward the basement. This time I understood. "The source is downstairs," I told the others. Whatever's doing this, it's in the basement. We made our way down the narrow stairs, the lily thing following behind us. The basement was larger than it should have been, stretching far beyond the footprint of the house above. The walls were lined with photographs, hundreds of them, all showing the same thing. Families sleeping in their beds, their eyes open but unseeing. In the center of the basement was a well. It was old, much older than the house, carved from black stone and covered with a heavy iron grate. The grate had been broken, leaving a jagged hole just large enough for someone to fall through. "My family built this house over an old cemetery," a voice said behind us. We turned to see a woman in old-fashioned clothing, translucent but clearly visible. The helpful shadow had taken on a more solid form. "I'm Eleanor Blackwood," she said. "My great-grandfather built this house in 1923. He thought he was being clever, building over the old burial ground to get the land cheap. He didn't know about the well." "What's down there?" Mrs. Chen asked. "Hunger," Eleanor replied. "Something that feeds on family bonds, on love turned to obsession. It makes people do terrible things to keep their loved ones close." The lily thing had reached the bottom of the stairs. "Eleanor," it said fondly, "still trying to help strangers after all these years. You should join your family instead. They're waiting for you." "I've been fighting you for 90 years, Eleanor said. "I won't stop now." She turned to us. "The well needs to be sealed properly, iron and salt and prayers, but it has to be done from the inside." "No," I said, understanding what she meant. "There has to be another way." "There is no other way," Eleanor said sadly. "Someone has to go down there and close it from below. Someone who doesn't have family here for it to use as leverage." The lily thing was getting closer and more shadows were pouring up from the well. They were reaching for us with grasping fingers, trying to pull us toward the hole. "I'll do it," Mrs. Chen said suddenly. "If it means saving my mother." "No," I interrupted. "It wants family connections. That's how it works. I'm not family. I'm the only one it can't use." Before anyone could stop me, I grabbed the bag of salt and iron nails and jumped into the well. The fall was longer than it should have been. I landed in water that was warm and thick like blood. The walls around me were covered in the same black stone as the well opening, but carved with faces. Thousands of them, all showing expressions of desperate hunger. The thing that had been wearing Lily's face appeared beside me, but down here, it showed its true form. It was massive, with too many arms and a mouthful of needle teeth. Its eyes were the same oil black I'd seen in the fake Lily. "You cannot seal what was never meant to be sealed," it said in a voice like grinding stone. "I am older than your churches, older than your gods. I am the hunger that turns love into chains." I poured the salt in a circle around myself and began driving the iron nails into the stone walls. Each nail seemed to cause the thing pain, making it shriek and writhe. "Families need each other," it continued, trying a different approach. "Parents and children, husbands and wives. Without that connection, what are you? Just isolated creatures waiting to die alone." It was getting harder to breathe. The water was rising and it tasted like copper and decay. "I can give you a family," the thing offered. "I can make you part of something larger. You'll never be alone again." I drove in the last nail and pulled out the matches I'd brought. The priest's prayers were echoing down from above, and I could hear Mrs. Chen calling my name. "Some things are worse than being alone," I said and lit the match. The salt ignited like gunpowder, creating a ring of fire around the well. The thing screamed as the flames climbed the walls, following the iron nails like a fuse. The carved faces in the stone began to crack and crumble. The water was up to my chest now, but I could see light filtering down from above. The well was collapsing, sealing itself as the fire consumed whatever power had kept it open. I don't remember climbing out. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the basement floor, coughing up water that tasted like mud. Mrs. Chen was holding my hand and the priest was finishing his prayers. The well was gone. In its place was solid concrete, as if it had never existed. "Where's your mother?" I asked Mrs. Chen. "Gone," she said with relief. The thing that looked like her just faded away. The hospital called. She woke up asking for me. Eleanor Blackwood appeared one last time, looking more solid than she had before. "Thank you," she said. "My family can rest now. We've been trapped here for so long, feeding it, helping it against our will. What about all the other families it took? Free now," she said with a smile. "The connections are broken. They can move on." She began to fade, but before she disappeared completely, she looked at me seriously. "Be careful who you trust with house-sitting jobs," she said. "Not all houses are as empty as they seem." I packed my things and left that morning. Mrs. Chen paid me the full amount plus a bonus, though I told her it wasn't necessary. Her mother recovered fully and moved in with her daughter, refusing to ever go back to the old house. The house has been empty ever since. Mrs. Chen had it professionally blessed and put up for sale, but potential buyers always find some reason not to close the deal. Too dark, they say. Too cold. Something feels wrong. I drive by sometimes just to make sure it's still empty. The windows are always dark and weeds have overgrown the yard. But sometimes, late at night, I see a light in one of the upstairs windows. I tell myself it's just reflection from the street lights. I tell myself the house is dead now, that the thing in the well is gone for good. But I never stop long enough to make sure. Because sometimes, when I'm driving past at exactly 12:47 a.m., I see someone standing in the front yard. Someone who looks like me, but isn't quite right. Someone who waves at me with too much familiarity. And I remember what the thing said about making me part of something larger. Some hungers, I've learned, are patient. They can wait years for the right moment, the right weakness. They can follow you home and settle into your life like dust, so gradual you don't notice until it's too late. I don't house sit anymore. I don't help neighbors with favors. I keep my distance from everyone because I've learned that love can be twisted into something monstrous. But late at night, when I'm lying alone in my apartment, I sometimes wonder if isolation is really better than belonging to something, even something terrible. And on those nights I hear scratching at my door. I never answer it, but the scratching is getting louder.